Okay, this is take 2 because the first take was quite rambly. And also I forgot to hit record. So that was about a waste of 10-15 minutes, but I have some practice on this video, so I can guarantee there's some uppage in quality right there. But I'm going to talk about the Kavanaugh stuff. I've tried to stay out of it because I hate, I get sucked into this stuff because I kind of like the drama stuff, but I hate getting sucked into it, so I try to stay out. But I did do a Kavanaugh video that just said, hey, it could be possible that she's lying, it could be possible that she's telling the truth, or it could be possible that she believes she's telling the truth, but her memory is faulty, because there's all kinds of research out there. Specifically, look up Dr. Elizabeth Loftus. Again, I did a video, and I'll link in the description, but if you don't want to watch the video, Dr. Elizabeth Loftus does a ton of research. She did a TED Talk on how memory during, like, traumatic experiences and stuff is actually not that reliable. Like, we think we remember things vividly, but we've actually just filled in the blanks of a lot of that stuff. So while we have a lot of memory, a lot of that memory is unreliable, is what she's essentially getting at. So that's always the potential third option. Now, I made that video not really saying what I thought could happen, but just pointing out that that is a third possible option. Now, since then, I have watched a lot of the hearing stuff, I have watched a lot of clips, and I'll kind of follow this rather closely from a few people, and just been part of a ton of group chats that talked about it. So I think, like, I haven't done every little bit of research on it, but I consider myself pretty, like, well informed on this issue. And still, so far, I gotta say, you gotta keep in mind that we do not know either way. That there is no evidence that says it did happen. There's no evidence that says it didn't happen. So when people are like, oh, I know that Ford is telling the truth, it's like, no, you don't. You do not. You do not, because there is no evidence. You remember, I just talked about memory. You cannot rely on memory. You can ask people for what they believe, what they think happened, and then you can use that memory to maybe look for actual evidence to point you in the right direction, but it is not evidence in and of itself. Now, for the people that said Ford is definitely innocent, and they seem to be oddly, like, partisan towards him, for those that say, like, yeah, he definitely did it, this woman's definitely lying, you don't know that, you have no idea. However, I tend to be more favorable towards those people because it's innocent until proven guilty. That's what you have to go off of. We don't know if he did it or not, but you have to give the guy being accused of the crime the benefit of the doubt. And I don't mean that as, like, a legal sense. I don't mean that in the legal sense of due process, innocent until proven guilty. I mean in the sense of, like, a principled standpoint. It's a legal matter because that is the principled position. You have to go innocent until proven guilty. Like, you just have to. And that's the thing that, like, I need some actual evidence here. Like, if you provide me evidence, great. I will follow that evidence to the conclusion, and I will say, this is what I believe based on the evidence, which I'm going to do here. But until then, I know, wow, my first unrecorded version was really rambly, and this isn't any less rambly. But yeah, we'll go through that here. So this is, if you had never heard of this, which I've seen some people talk about and other people haven't, like, not compared to other stuff. Not too many people have talked about it. But this is a supposed letter sent to Senator Chuck Grassley. I don't know why him of all people. Maybe he's the leader of the committee. I have no idea. But this is a message sent to him, or a letter sent to him by the supposed, alleged, like, ex-boyfriend of Christine Blasey Ford, who dated her for 6 years. Now, he did testify under oath that this is true. So, but he has also requested to be anonymous. So this is a lot of stuff where, yeah, like, intelligence, the government intelligence, they know all the stuff. They know the guy. They can probably do some research into that stuff, and hopefully they'll do nonpartisan, unbiased research into this and come out and say, this is what we believe. But unfortunately, like, some of this stuff we can verify and do some research on, but for the most part, it's like, it's still not that much. Like, we cannot say for sure whether we should believe this or whether we should believe Ford. We can't say for sure. However, we can, again, we can make guesses, and we can say this is the most likely option. And that's what I'm going to do here in this video. 4 minutes in already. Holy crap. 4 minutes in. But anyway, let's go through this. So, again, he testified under oath, but he requested to be anonymous. That's why there's information, names, and addresses that are redacted. What he says is, I, redacted, am a current member of, redacted, California. I first met Christine Blasey, now Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, in 1989 or 1990 in California. Remember that Ford testified that this happened sometime. I mean, she changed her story a few times, or she clarified, then unclarified. And it happened basically early to mid-'80s is from what we can tell. So this is about maybe 5 years, give or take a few years, after this thing happened. From 1990 to 1991, I was just friends with Ford. From approximately 1992 to 1998, I was in a relationship with Dr. Ford. I found her truthful and maintained no animus towards her. Now, obviously, the relationship didn't work out, so we're just going on this guy's word that, yes, he has nothing against her. It's like, I'm thinking back to my exes, it's like, I have nothing against them. Like, if they were running for office, I can't imagine that I would, like, write a letter saying how awful they were. Like, no, I just ignore it, like, move on. I don't really hold, like, it's possible to have a bad breakup or any kind of breakup at all, like neutral or absolutely train wreck, and be like, and move on from it and be fine. So it's like, it's entirely possible that this guy could be doing it out of revenge, doing it out of anger, or he could just be like, I gotta tell the truth. So it could be either way. That's something I really don't know. But we have to keep in mind, so far as he's claiming they were in a relationship, and he's also claiming that the relationship did not work. So that's something, there might still be some emotions there, but it's also been decades. It's like, move on. If these people haven't moved on, which some people don't, sadly enough, I hope they moved on from this, and this isn't just like an emotional attack on Ford. But they were in a relationship, and this is something that hopefully the actual identity of the person is known by intelligence. I hope they took his name and they took his information and said, we're going to keep you anonymous. I hope he wasn't just like, hey, I'm anonymous. And that was it. But this is something that I hope they can track in some way. I would think however the message was sent, I don't know if it was sent by email or something, that they can try to verify this person. If intelligence can, hopefully they're nonpartisan and non-biased and all that, and can verify it. But what he says is, during our time dating, Dr. Ford never brought up anything regarding her experience as a victim of sexual assault, harassment, or misconduct. Dr. Ford never mentioned Brett Kavanaugh. Now, he does say they were dating for 6 years. So this is something, bad relationships, it's entirely possible they were in a relationship that was bad the whole way through, and she never brought this stuff up to him because they never talked, they never they never knew personal things about each other, but the relationship lasted 6 years. So I would like to think that it was at least pretty good for maybe the first 4 or 5 years, like, or else it wouldn't have lasted that long. I would like to think it's pretty good. And if you have a good relationship, or at least like a decent relationship, you know these things about your partner. You know that if any of this stuff ever happened, it was brought up, they talked about it. You know this person well enough to know that if there was any kind of like sexual assault, they would have talked about it. I would hope, at least. Like, again, this is something where we can say, it's entirely possible that this did happen, like this guy's telling the truth, but he never heard about it, but it happened. But the more likely option is, if this guy is telling the truth, that if he didn't hear about it, it probably didn't happen. That's just what this is all, like, again, predictions. These are probabilities. These are not ironclad truths. These are what we can estimate based on the evidence. During some of the time we were dating, Dr. Ford lived with Monica L. McLean, who I understood to be her lifelong best friend. Now, this is interesting because one thing, actually something I forgot to mention earlier, that if they know the identity of this guy, like an easy way to supplement if this guy's testimony should be credible at all, because again, we don't just want to believe this paper just like we're believing Ford or not believing Ford, because it's like, no, you need evidence. That's why we're going through this. We're not just like, oh, this whole thing is true. It's like, no, we need evidence. If the intelligence does actually have the guy's identity, which I think it'd be pretty easy to find out based on all the NSA spying. Like, they have all this data. They should be able to figure out who this guy is. And hopefully they keep his name anonymous as he requested. But they can look into this guy and say, okay, does he have any pictures? Like, does he have any, at least, like, if this guy could send them some pictures that says, this is me with Dr. Ford. Like, if they were in a relationship for 6 years and didn't get pictures, like, that seems kind of strange. And I would say, if you can't actually back up any, like, video or picture evidence that they were together in some way, then you just gotta dismiss what this guy said, basically. Like, I think if you don't have any actual evidence that they were in a relationship, again, this is all stuff that we can't really find out because we don't know his name, but if intelligence can't verify this based on any, like, if he doesn't have any evidence, then we have to toss it out. But if he can verify with pictures, that's something easy to do. Like, you just send him pictures and say, that doesn't prove they were in a 6-year relationship, but it proves that they knew each other at least, that they had some kind of friendship at least. She was living with Monica McLean, who was understood to be her lifelong best friend. During that time, it was my understanding that McLean was interviewing for jobs with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Now, this is something that the FBI should have on file, and this is something that the FBI hopefully are going through this and seeing if McLean is a member of the FBI, or if, at the very least, she went through a job interview. This is something that, like, this is all stuff they can verify. So the thing is, the guy swore under oath. So if he is lying, like, he lied under oath. So I would think that it's entirely possible this could be just some troll. This could just be some guy, like, that is making all this stuff up. But again, like, he seems to be putting quite a bit on the line here, and he's saying a lot of things that can be verified. This is just, there's more stuff. But he's saying a lot of things, like, we can look this up. We can look up if she had a job interview. Okay, that's a tangent. That's an actual link to reality right there that we can verify. Eyewitness Dr. Ford helped McLean prepare for a potential polygraph exam. Dr. Ford explained in detail what to expect, how polygraphs worked, and helped McLean become familiar and less nervous about the exam. Dr. Ford was able to help because of her background in psychology. Now, like, that's something that I keep bringing up all the time. Like, I have a minor in psych, and I learned how unreliable memory was, and I learned how bad polygraphs were. Like, how you can't rely on polygraphs. So I would think with my minor in psych, now, again, this is... We have found new evidence over the years to say, like, hey, polygraphs don't work. This was something we were much more confident about back then. We were much more confident back then that polygraphs were reliable. So maybe she didn't learn this when she was getting her degree in psychology. But assuming she's a good psychologist and keeping up with the literature, she should know this stuff. This is stuff she should be aware. She should be aware of how polygraphs work. She should be aware of if there's any way to cheat them. She should be aware if they're reliable or not. She should be aware of the memory stuff. Like, this is all stuff that... if she's a good psychologist, she might not be. And it's like, if she's not, then fine. That's a whole other issue. But she should know about this stuff, basically. Like, I would think she would know about this stuff. And this guy's saying she coached Monica McLean on polygraphs, which I believe goes directly against what she said under oath, that she has never discussed polygraphs or how to beat them or how they work or how to cheat them with anyone. And this goes directly against her testimony. Now, again, it's like, we don't know who this guy is. I already went on to if we can verify what this guy said or not earlier. We have no idea, like, at the moment, until we get actual evidence, if we get this guy's name or any kind of evidence that links this guy to Dr. Ford, we can't say for sure that this guy is telling the truth. But, again, I'm going to stop saying it after this time. I'm making predictions. I'm not stating objective truth here. I'm saying this is what we can gather from the data. Dr. Ford and I lived together while we were dating. That can be verified. They just have to look. If they have this guy's, if they know who this guy is, they can look at his official, like, residential address on his tax records. They can do the same thing with Ford. They can see if they were the same during this time. And I believe he also said the same thing. Yeah, they were... Dr. Ford lived with Monica McLean, so they can do the same thing. They can verify Dr. Ford's address during that time. They can verify Monica's address during that time. If they're the same, that gives more evidence to this guy's story. Dr. Ford and I lived together while we were dating and stayed together in a long-distance relationship when Dr. Ford moved to Hawaii sometime around 1998, although I'm not sure of the particular year, and it might have been a bit earlier or later. So again, something verifiable. While visiting Ford in Hawaii, we traveled around the Hawaiian Islands, including one time on a propeller plane. Dr. Ford never indicated a fear of flying. To the best of my recollection, Dr. Ford never expressed a fear of closed quarters, tight spaces, or places with only one exit. And that goes again against another thing. She's talked about having a fear of flying. And if I remember right from the testimony or from the questions by Rachel Mitchell to her, she was like, yeah. She said she had a fear of flying, but she loves to travel. She loves to go on vacation to all these places that require flying. Now, is it possible that she still has a fear of flying and still goes on vacations via plane? Could be possible. Could be possible that she prefers that the desire and favorability of vacations is much higher than her fear of flying, and therefore is enough to justify it. Sure. It's possible, but unlikely. In my opinion, at least. That is an unlikely story. It's like, could it be true? Yeah. Is it? Probably not. I think that goes against her story right there. And this is just saying, like, Now I can't remember which recording I said this in. I'm not biased towards Kavanaugh. Like, overall, it's like there could be people worse than Kavanaugh, but there's a lot of people better than Kavanaugh. Like, I can like name like 10 people that I'd rather have than Kavanaugh. In fact, one of them is Amy Barrett, who was I believe, rumored to be Trump's second choice. So if Kavanaugh got turned down, if this was enough, like if these allegations were enough to have people say, yeah, they turned down Kavanaugh and then Amy Barrett gets nominated next, that'd be better for me. Like, that's what I prefer. That is in my best interest, I suppose, to say, like, in terms of picking my judge. It's like, it's not that I'm defending Kavanaugh because I'm biased towards him or I endorse his policies, because I don't. It's because this is what seems to be happening here is absolutely messed up. Like, these allegations don't seem to be true. And when I made that video before, I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I looked into a little bit of stuff. I have no idea. I think she could be telling the truth. I think she could be lying. I have no idea. And then every time I watch a video, every time I do more research, which I've done a lot since then, every time I look into it, the chance that she's lying goes up, in my opinion. Like, I seem to be growing more and more confident that she is lying. But yeah, it's a mess. I hate this political drama stuff. But yeah, so right here, it's like, again, this is something, if all this is true, her thing about fear of flying, totally false. And it's like, okay, she's lying about that. What else is she lying about? Again, these are assumptions we're making, but they could be true. Where am I going? I'm not sure the particular year. Might have been earlier. They went on a plane. She's not afraid of close quarters, tight spaces, or places with only one exit. He assisted Dr. Ford with finding a place to live in redacted California. She ended up living in a very small 500 square foot house with one door. Despite trying to maintain... Now, that's another thing that they can verify. I'm pretty sure they can look at, like, her residence and what the house looks like. Despite trying to maintain a long-distance relationship, I ended the relationship once I discovered that Dr. Ford was unfaithful while living in Hawaii. So she was unfaithful, which means she lied. She cheated on this guy. She lied. Now, again, this is assuming what this guy says is true, which I tend to want to believe because he's putting so much on the line here. He's lied under oath, but then again, so is Ford. So it's like, I don't know. After the breakup, I took her off the credit card we shared, but nearly a year later, I noticed Dr. Ford had been charging the card and charged about $600 worth of merchandise. When confronted, Dr. Ford said she did not use the card, so she said she didn't use it, but later admitted to use the card after I threatened to involve fraud prevention. So she lied. Again, she lied, and it's like, maybe, again, it doesn't say she's lying now, but it's some pretty good evidence. Again, like, I know, have I said this like the 10th time already? Assuming what this guy says is true, which we don't know if it's true, but the further I read, the more likely I am to think, or I am thinking that the more likely it's true. But yeah, she has a history of lying. That's nice. And the only thing is, it's like, I can't even imagine, like, if I still had card access to, like, I mean, I've never been on the same credit card as a past girlfriend of mine, but it's like, even if I was and still had the card, or I still had the numbers for the card, I can't imagine doing that, like, a year later. I figured a year later that you would have moved on and you wouldn't have any, like, bad emotional stuff from that. Yeah, I figured you would have moved on, and then at the very least, if you had moved on, you wouldn't be like, I'm going to be a horrible person and spend $600 of this guy's money. Like, no. This paints her as an awful person. And it's like, again, maybe the boyfriend is just super mad and hasn't gotten over it, which is also possible. Maybe this guy is a terrible person, but it's like, because this is all assumptions, but based on what I can read so far, it looks like this guy's probably legit. I didn't speak again to Ford until about 2002 when Ford contacted me briefly. After that, I hadn't thought much about her until I saw her story in the Washington Post on Sunday, September 16, 2018. I do not want to become involved in this process or current investigation, but wanted to be truthful about what I know. Sign. So yeah, I don't blame the guy for wanting to be anonymous, because it's like, look at what is happening with... I mean, Ford came out publicly, and she didn't even want to come out publicly, supposedly. She didn't want to come out publicly. She wanted it to be entirely anonymous and look like how she has gotten death threats, and it's like, no matter what you think, maybe she's a total liar, death threats are not justified. Like, don't do that, ever. at the very least, even if you're like, even if you're totally okay with death threats and you have nothing morally against that, it makes people look bad. It does nothing but, in a purely utilitarian sense, in a purely pragmatically speaking, it does nothing but show the person like, oh, they're getting death threats, they must have something to say that's important. But yeah, don't do it. It's like, I can't imagine ever sending someone a death threat. Like, that is awful. Like, even if I legitimately hated someone, it's like, don't send them a death threat. Like, don't do that. Especially someone you don't actually know personally. Like, seriously. Like, there are all kinds of politicians I can name that I absolutely think are awful human beings, and I'd never even consider sending them a death threat. But yeah, so reading all this, I mean, the reason I went through it and like let you see right here what's going on was so you could put in your input, you could see this thing for yourself. Do you believe it or not? I tend to think like this guy is probably legit. Like, there's a lot of contradictions with Ford's story. Pretty much everyone says she's lying. Like, this is not the first guy, whether real or not, to say that she's lying. Like, again, all the witnesses she named said, hey, this isn't true. Like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We can't verify your story. It's very, very strange. And it's like, at this point, it's like a shaky story is not evidence. Even if it was like a legit story, even if it was just nothing but a story and it held up, it's still not like, it's still not actual evidence. But I'd be more inclined to say, okay, I can see that happening. I can't see this happening. Like, I'm becoming increasingly confident that this whole thing is just that she actually is legitimately lying. But it's like, let me know what you think, because I am actually like, I know some people are so mad at her that they're like, yes, she should get jail time. And it's like, unless you can do a whole nother case in a court of law and prove that she was lying, like if they can verify this evidence that she lied under oath and she actually lied, then sure, throw her in jail for lying. But again, you have to remember the whole, like, it's still a distinct possibility that her memory just sucks. Her memory is just flawed and she's got the wrong guy. Maybe something bad did happen to her. Like, that seems possible. Like, it could be that she is actually, like, she has been assaulted or raped or something in the past, but by Kavanaugh, no. Like, not saying it definitely didn't happen. I'm saying there's no evidence. Like, I have yet to see any, like, solid story or any good evidence that says, yes, this happened. So at that point, we gotta say no. And for the record, for the people that are just like, yeah, well, like, all on board they're on board with Ford because it's their side versus the right, which is against their side. I have yet to meet anyone there's nobody that I know that's spoken. I mean, people that I probably know that haven't said anything, but I've yet to meet someone that has been vocal about it, that has said, I think Brett Kavanaugh is a great, fantastic judge, great guy, like, overall my definitely number one choice, and that's why I want him to go through. Or I've yet to see anyone hold that position. The vast majority of people I know are like, that have spoken about it, of course, are like, yeah, I don't like Kavanaugh, are basically sharing my opinion. Yeah, I don't like Kavanaugh. He could be better on some issues. He's not the worst, but he's not the best. And most of them also agree with me that Amy Barrett would have been better. But the fact that they go through the allegations and like this is just a total like messed up process. This is awful what is happening to Kavanaugh. We feel legitimately bad for him, which I do. I feel bad for the guy. This is absolutely awful what's happening. And for that reason, they're like, yes, confirm him. Because we cannot let people see that this kind of crazy accusations, these kind of crazy mudslinging and just disgusting form of politics, we cannot let people know that this works. And it's like, I kind of have to agree with him in that sense. That it's like, even if he's not the best judge, I don't like the idea of the guy, like, not getting picked for this reason. For the reason that people believe these allegations that I'm somewhat confident, I'm about 70% confident right now, are false. But yeah, let me know what you think. This is just like, that's the thing, like, it's just such a mess that I think everyone paying attention to this that isn't already on the far left is either sick of politics and therefore just kind of backing out of it, or they're so mad that this is what's going on that they're just like, okay, full Kavanaugh all the way, like, bring him in. Give me a Kavanaugh t-shirt and a flag or something with his face on it. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. Like, this is something that I still could be swayed either on. So if you're like, I mean, I can be swayed on. I'd like to think I can be swayed on just about everything, but for real, like, let me know what you think. I'm curious to know what you think. What do you think of this story? Maybe I'll have they verified any of this stuff? Like, I haven't found anything that says they verified that, like, any of this stuff actually happened, that this message I read, but seems to be legit to me. Like, I don't know why someone would go forward with that. Although then again, two people went forward and said they were actually the person that Ford is talking about. They did actually, like, rape her that night, or what is it, molest her. They assaulted her that night. We'll go with that. She was assaulted that night. Two people say they did it, and it's like, well, at least one of them's lying. And we know at least one of them's lying. And honestly, like, it seems more realistic to me that someone wants Kavanaugh to win so much that they will go forward and put their own life on the line for that reason and go to jail to get him picked. Because there are people out like that are so into it like that. It's like, okay. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Sorry it went so long. Honestly, I probably tangented less in this one than I did in the other one. In the non-recorded version, because I forgot to hit record. But thanks for watching.